All right, guys, welcome back to Burn the Ship, the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs to professionals to help you go all in on your business. I'm your host, Ezra Brown. Without further ado, I'm going to allow my guest to introduce himself.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Oran Ben-Simon, Executive Vice President of KOSL Building. We're a residential development company based in Westchester County, New York, and here to help however I can.
All right, awesome, man. I appreciate you coming first and foremost. And Oren, what would you say, or not what would you say, but write me a story, kind of explain this process of what it's been like for you in this entrepreneur life, of going to college or straight out of high school, kind of what that looked like. Paint me that picture.
I mean, it really starts from a lot of people that they're not sure what to do when they're older. You always hear the whole do what makes you happy thing. It's not necessarily true. You need to do what you're good at because if you're good at something, you're going to find value in yourself, you're going to level up faster, and eventually you're going to enjoy to like it or swing from one branch to the other. So this was a family business that I was kind of bred into. My father started it about 40 years ago. I was subliminally conditioned into it back in the day when everybody was a camp counselor or delivering pizza. I was mixing concrete, laying tile, so learning it from the ground up, spending time with my dad, getting some good physical activity. So it was very insightful, and I kind of fell in love with it from there. As I went to college and grad school, started learning more about contracts, finances, all of that, learning more about the business side of it, not just from the ground up. It gave me a really good bearing and fundamentals in place. So it was inevitable and kind of just my destiny to be able to not take over, but expand and grow from there. So as the years have evolved, started doing more business, getting involved in different components. We specialize in high-end single-family homes, but we started getting involved in different types of residential developments in different sectors. So we're always looking for new opportunities and want to make sure that we continue to grow without plateau.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, has your dad still got his hand in the business a little bit, or is it just completely you now?
Oh, absolutely. No, our business is our life. It's a lifestyle. It's the way I describe it to people is when everyone was kind of freaking out that things were shut down during COVID and whatnot. For me, it was no different. Every day feels like a Tuesday. If you run a business, you have to understand that there's no timing on things. Sure, you have the freedom to take off whenever you want, don't have to report to anyone, have the flexibility of the freedom of lifestyle. But at the same time, if you have things that need to get done, it's going to take till midnight or you got to spend, holidays, weekends, whatever it is, just doing to get things in place. That's what you do. So every day is the same for me in terms of just getting things done, making sure it's in place, and the gratification of seeing the true results that you're actually putting into it is what empowers business owners to continue to thrive and stay self-motivated.
That's awesome. Yeah, and then you said you went to school too. So, did you go to school for finances, or for that accounting, finance kind of business realm of things, or did you go to school for something else?
No, I went to SUNY Albany for undergrad, just for business, just general overlay of things, and then I went to grad school at Columbia for construction management. That was night school, so it's quite onerous, waking up extremely early to do homework, just to go to work and do what I do all day, and then go to night school. It was a 3-year program, so I expedited it, taking summer, winter classes, extra days during the week to do it in 2 years, and that actually instilled a very specific type of work ethic in my mind because I got so used to working these, 16, 18-hour days. And I said, you know what? If I'm in this habit already, I might as well continue it. So that's when I kind of sat down and said, okay, where do I want to be? Everybody talks about a game plan of your 5-year goal, 10-year goal, but sometimes it's not realistic. You need to be realistic with yourself. Some people might say, oh, my goal's $1 million or to own a whole bunch of rental properties. Okay, cut that in half now. How do you get to the halfway point to get to there? Cut that in half, cut that in half, until you get to the point where what can you do within the next month in order to get to that stage? So
Right.
for me, I basically said, okay, I want to be dominating in all residential real estate. When you think about residential, you really have 3 stages of life, right? You have rentals, which could be apartments, townhomes, etc. Then you have ownership of single family homes or condos. And then you have retirement for independent living, assisted living, nursery care, etc. So I'm basically in the middle of life, so to speak, where we do single family homes. And so I said, okay, we can either get into multifamily or we could get into senior housing. And then that way we can basically create something called the trifecta of living, where we could help facilitate people for their residential needs from the time they're independent to the time they retire. Senior housing was extremely difficult to enter. There's a lot of regulations, a lot of healthcare, finding the right operator. And when it comes to construction, when you have the knowledge of how to build things, you could build anything. But if you don't know how to run it or operate it, you might build it wrong, and that's going to be a big problem for you down the road. So partnering with the right people right from the get-go was absolutely imperative. It took about 4 years to penetrate the market, find the right properties, started learning about zoning, grants, different types of comprehensive plans, and esoteric codes to find the ideal property that doesn't get swallowed up by all the big guys and the behemoths. And then once we started establishing that, we said, okay, let's start working on the easier part, which is the rentals. It's easier to build, easier to maintain. There's obviously a lower entry to barrier, but a lot of competition.
Right.
Of course, navigating the municipal laws and codes. So having all three of those gives stability, gives investors the ability also to get involved in different types of returns and metrics that they're looking for, as well as also giving you comfort of stability, not having your eggs all in one basket.
No, that's super awesome. You guys are very I guess you'd say you're very I guess God, what's the word I'm looking for?
Diversified.
Like one of a kind in your own niche. You know what I mean?
That too.
I was looking for a bigger word than one of a kind, but that'll work though. But no, and what would you say like an ROI is on like on a senior living? Say you go in and you're developing a senior living. What would you say the ROI is on that?
So senior living's a lot more complicated, and anybody that gives you a straightforward answer is not forthcoming because before COVID, there's so many components of senior living that you get into, which is a world of opening for me. You have nursing homes, you have independent living, you have assisted living, you have memory care, etc. They all have different licensures, they all have different build outs. And there's a more advanced type of senior living that's called CCRCs. Those are continuing care retirement communities. And
Mhm.
that's basically an evolution of having people being able to transition within the same place. The reason why it's so beneficial is because if you outgrow your needs, which on average is usually maybe 4 years, 5 years in advanced care, where do you go from there? You have stabilization rates that are not consistent. You're not providing the adequate care because people are forced to move out early because they don't have the proper accommodation.
Right.
And on top of that, having wait lists that are just endlessly going and not revamping the space for new types of conditions or being able for people to actually acclimate there for a longer period of time is not the way to go. So having different types of care within the same facility allows people to actually stay there for much longer, 10 years, 12 years, and not have to worry about where they're going to move next, how they're going to find care next. So that comes to play with, first of all, also having a suitable sized property. Anybody who wants to just build a small apartment complex high rise in the middle of the city for senior housing might work by law, but it's not proper. People want
Right.
green space. People want an area where they can walk around, not feel like they're confined to one area. So finding a suitable sized property in a good area with the municipal appetite to actually get behind it and see that it's something that's good for the future, whether it's by current zoning or it could be modified. That's an important component. So when that plays into it too, it's also about what you're helping in terms of giving back to the community, whether it's through getting subsidies through grants, doing public improvement work. So there's a lot of different factors that end up either impeding or exacerbating the ROI, and every deal is totally different.
Right. That's awesome. And then I guess better saying is what I was gonna say is what would you say that average time is on your ROI
Uh,
once built and running?
Yeah, I would say that stabilization's fairly similar, maybe a little bit stretched out more than what multifamily is. I'd say about, you know, 4 or 5 years when you're going to start hitting that 90% stabilization up to 95, optimistically, that's when you're going to start seeing good returns that are coming in.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And then you said you guys do like custom single family home or single family homes is kind of where you guys started at.
Yeah, that's our bread and butter. We are definitely the top builders in Scarsdale. We've won many awards throughout Westchester. We just won from Build, actually, best custom home in New York. So we're always getting qualified for different things. Every year it changes. There's a lot of great builders out there too. Most of our clientele is definitely word of mouth. It's a really personalized process because we work with high net worth individuals, very sophisticated people, people that want security, they want good schools, they want safety, and they want to aspire and build their dream home for their family. So
Right.
we learn all the intricacies about, what their priorities are, what their needs are, and see what we could do to accommodate it. There are several different ways that it comes about. We're an A to Z shop, so we're also a real estate brokerage. We know about properties that are off market and before they even hit the market. So we know the due diligence of what goes into it, analyzing code, what could actually be built, if there's any environmental encumbrances, all the things that are important to understand that if you buy a property, could you build what you want on it? And that's an important thing that I always tell to people is everybody in real estate always says location, location, location. you could have the best location in the world, but
Right.
if you can't build on it, what good is it, right?
Right.
If it's covered in flood zone or wetlands, it impedes on your building coverage. If the zoning is out of whack, then you can't do what you need to. So the due diligence of knowing what you can actually get into prior to getting into it is half the battle. So
Right.
we buy properties ourselves, whether it's directly ourselves or with LPs. And then we build spec where it's our design. We get all the approvals, all the permits, build A to Z, and then sell it. Then there are times where people come to us and they say, "Hey, we love your property. We'd like to build it. We like your plans. Let's proceed." Or they say, "We want to modify the plans, but we like the site, so we change things, build and proceed." Or we get people that call us and say, "Hey, I have a property. We want you guys to build on it for us," or we don't even know where to start. We want to look for a property, but we want you guys to build our home, so please advise us. So it's very versatile, a lot of options and flexibility, but it all depends on what the client wants.
Right. And do you guys do any residential development, like neighborhoods, things like that?
Yeah, so they're usually based as subdivisions. They're not really the conglomerate ones that you see like in Florida or ones that the big companies do in terms of like 1,000 single
No,
family
you see the
homes.
ones like we got right here in Atlanta where I live. Like I live in a neighborhood like that, like a
Yeah,
small subdivision.
yeah, no, a lot of times people do them as modular, which we don't do. It's all custom built from the ground up. Also, our homes are fairly sizable. We started around the 4 million market. They're usually on average, I would say 6 to 8, about 7 to 8,000 square feet above grade plus
That's
finished
awesome.
basement. So it's hard to find vacant land around here. It's quite overbuilt. But if we're able to find subdivisions where we, break it out into 4 lots, five, six, whatever it is allowed by zoning, then we'll tier it out as a development. Sometimes we've actually built entire streets just by chance of we build a house, neighbors run to the bank, they get their property reassessed because now the comp has appreciated the neighborhood. They either cannot sell it or want to sell it to us for a premium. We buy it, we knock it down, build the next home, and then it keeps compounding from there.
Right.
Sometimes neighbors actually will move out temporarily in order for us to build their custom home in a neighborhood that they've acclimated to over the years, which is a very nice thing. So, we've built mini communities, I'd say, just from, rolling with it.
Right. That's super awesome. But Oren, tell me, what's your favorite part of your day to day?
Honestly, I love the creativity. I love putting together, just seeing a property of what its potential could be. I'm a problem solver. A lot of people that say, what's the problem? I always come back and say, no, no, what's the question? Okay.
Right.
Because there's a solution for every single problem. You might not like the solution. You might not like the answer. But that's really the key to leveling up. Whether doesn't matter the industry you're in, doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner. If you can find a way to solve problems, you will be successful, okay? Because it's going to lower your stress level. People will see value in you. You're going to be growing. And by the time you look back and see how far you've come, it's going to be an incredible view because finding problems and solutions to them, because a lot of times you actually have to find the problem because you don't even know it existed. And that comes from
Right.
experience, and you find out after the fact. But that's leveling up because let's say you're whatever you aspire to be, your top goal end of life is your level 10. Okay. So let's say wherever you are that goal right now, let's say you're level 4. Okay. And you're working your way up to get there. Guess what? When you were a level 2 and you were having level 2 problems, you were freaking out, right? Now that you're a level 4, your level 2 problems, they're not that bad. You're probably
Right.
still dealing with the same problems, but you know how to solve them faster. Your
Right.
stress, my stress, anybody else's stress, okay? It's all relative. Mine's not bigger than yours, okay?
Right.
It's all relative in your mind, and as long as you know how to get past it, that's what's going to move you forward.
I love that point of view. That's that's super awesome. See, that's why I love doing this podcast. Get to meet people like you and get to get nuggets of information that I don't get on my day to day.
Oh, absolutely.
But no, that is super awesome. Being that problem solver. Are you one of the people when you can get out to say somebody calls you out to their land, they're like, all right, I want to build a house here. Can you envision that house being there right then, or do you have somebody that's on your team that does that for you?
No, I mean, look, that's the benefit of being a small company that puts out a lot of volume is we're a one-man show team, and if you have a whole bunch of one-man guys, and ladies, then you're all units, and then you're performing equally because we're not relying on other people to get things done. So
Right.
our output is tremendous because of that. And
That's super
so
awesome.
we have people, sure. I have somebody that she just called me this morning, said, love your work. Everything looks great. I want to build a house. I said, okay, do you have a property? No. Do you know where you want to build? Yeah, we want to build in New York. Really? In America? like where
That's a
we need a
broad. That's a
little,
broad. That's a broad place.
it happens all the time, and it's like we need a little bit more refinement. Where do you want to build? What's the town? At least start with the property size. Do you want to be close to work, to the city, etc.? So
Right.
after we start narrowing it down and we start looking for properties if they don't already have one, which is part of our consulting services that we provide, where if people are starting from scratch completely, we help them do everything, whether it's getting the approvals, building the plans, doing renderings, because in the event that they do not move forward with their home because their contingency fell through or just didn't pan out, at least now they have a package that could be applicable to other properties, plus
Right.
knowledge and education of themselves of how to do it next time. But yeah, it depends. We've come across properties that are heavily encumbered. We've built entire seawalls, almost a mile stretch with the Army Corps of Engineers that are right on the Long Island Sound water. Those are quite the undertaking. We built properties literally blasting into a mountain with a tremendous amount of rock removal and about a 70-foot drop of a slope, tearing it off with retaining walls and making it into something beautiful. So as long as people know what they're getting into, have the right advice ahead of time, and understand, where that falls within their budget and their expectations
Right.
for timing, anything's possible. You just got to engineer it properly.
That's sick, man. That's sick. Because you guys, I mean, you guys have your hand in almost, you got a tentacle on almost everything in your industry. From the residential to commercial to building, for multifamily to building or to the agency, marketing agency, or not marketing, but real estate agency you got in house, I believe you said.
Yep.
And then you're doing consulting as well.
Yep. Yeah, we try
Yeah,
to do everything that
that's
we can.
incredible.
Yeah, because a lot of it gets intertwined. We're in, I would say, what are called like the gray areas of professionalism, in that sometimes, an engineer might not help on a certain legal application because he feels like an attorney can do it. Sometimes an attorney says he won't know the technical info. Sometimes an architect won't exactly have the internal vision that a designer might have, and a designer won't understand structural. It's a whole roundabout. So we're kind of the Spider-Man of webbing the whole team together,
Yeah.
making sure that the communication is clear. But yeah, that's just a well-rounded knowledge of over time, understanding the different dynamics. And again, it varies every project, and whatever the field happens to be, they overlap each other. So
Man, that's incredible. Yeah, you got what you guys got going on is rocking, and I'm glad I got to have you on. And what's it called? What would you say is the thing that that when you first took over, in your chair now, what would you not do so well? What do you need a little help with when you're starting to get going?
honestly, it's really about people who say that early bird gets the worm. My whole thing is second mouse gets the cheese. Okay. It's learning early that you need to learn from other people's mistakes, ideally, but of course also your own. Sometimes those mistakes might not be identical. It's about conceptually understanding them. That takes time. Okay. I've made tons of mistakes. Everybody does. But I pride myself, at least to the best that I think, that I do not repeat them. Okay. If I
Right.
see that there was an issue one time because of being reactive rather than proactive, which is a big thing that I always put forward with my guys, or seeing that there wasn't a certain due diligence done, or relying on people to do things without double checking it because hey, they know what they're doing or they're professional. No, at the end of the day, accountability is everything. Okay, if it's your product, it's your work, it's your name, you need to be checking everybody at all times. Don't take anything for granted. Okay, and
Hmm.
make sure that you're on top of things. If you learned a lesson from the past, write it down. I have an endless list of mistakes that I always have to put in, whether it's tiny things I had that have to do with inspections, all the way to huge components that we just didn't implement at the time. One great
Right.
example is every single one of our homes, doesn't matter if you don't want it, we always incorporate a prefabbed elevator shaft, just the preparation for it. All it
Hmm.
is just pouring the footings in place and aligning the linen closets on each of the floors, and we just finish them as closets. But in the future, if you want an elevator, I don't have to start ripping apart your entire house and trying to take away from this room, take away from that room, restructure the whole thing. You just
Right.
have it right there for you, and you insert it, and it's all up to code and good to go. So there's 100 examples like that where they may not want this now, but having that there for the future. And, we let them know, again, you don't have to do it, but knowing that you don't have that invasive mistake of hindsight is
Right.
extremely important. So that concept is definitely applicable because construction's not forgiving. A lot of things, the further you get along and into it, it's harder to change. It's more expensive. Sometimes it's not feasible, causes delays, could cause animosity with the team. So just making sure that you're really looking at the notepad that you've mentally been developing over time.
Right. That's awesome. That is a good perspective on that because you answered my next question. 'Cause I was going to say what separates you guys, but it is that going above and beyond and making sure that your client is taken care of. But what does separate you guys on top of that?
Honestly, everybody prides themselves on customer service until it's time to perform. Then where are you?
Until it's time to pick up the phone, until
Where are
answer the
you?
phone.
If there's an issue, we want to know about it. We want to get it addressed. So I think that's a big thing, about confidence of knowing that the person that you're working with is accountable. They're going to be there. If somebody calls me in 7 years and they have an issue, we're there. It doesn't matter. Okay. We're not going anywhere. We built hundreds of homes. That's why we live in town. And it's a really important motto to have in place that people know our best warranties is the only phone call I get from you is Happy New Year. I don't want those phone calls. So if we have to exceed code because we know something that was on the drawings wasn't really proper and we need to engineer it a little bit more, then we're going to go ahead and do it. Cutting corners is always going to hurt you, no matter what. I don't care what anybody says. If there's ways to value engineer certain things and you consult it with the entire team and everybody's aligned, it must be unanimous. Okay. Because that is always going to come back to haunt you. And if you save $1 today, you're going to lose $1 billion tomorrow. So that's
Mm-hmm.
extremely important. And the other thing is, I think we're extremely creative. I mean, we come up with a lot of really, really cool ideas, do finishes, trying to kind of blend the traditional and modern into a transitional feel. Sometimes people will have like, let's say, a beautiful French chateau or extremely nice Georgian colonial as a traditional style. But when you walk in, it's completely contemporary. You just clashed two completely different styles together. And what a lot of people don't realize is it might be beautiful to you, but eventually you're probably going to sell your home. It's one of the biggest investments you're ever going to make. And you do not want to have to renovate your entire house for a new market eventually because you made something so tailored and custom to yourself that you actually impeded your ability to have that return on investment. So
Right.
when people say certain things that they do want to do or don't want to do, like saying they don't want a dining room or they don't want a powder room on the first floor, we always tell them, listen, it's a kiss of death on your value eventually. If you don't want to use it, fine. If you want to make it, very simple and not ornate so that it saves a little bit of money, no problem. But to insert that after the fact or to take away a big item that
Right.
people expect these days,
Right.
you're shooting yourself in the foot. So
I didn't even think about it like that either, because that's definitely a lost tool in today's society is a dining room.
no, absolutely. And I know it varies
Yeah.
by areas. Like by here, you have to have a finished basement. There's no such thing as not having a finished basement.
Oh,
It's older homes, but other areas, I know like in Texas or areas where they have clay and soil, they don't have it. They just have a lot of
mm-hmm.
beautiful outdoor space, and that's great. That's the market, and that's the balancing act of really knowing your area. So
Right. Right. Because yeah, where you guys are, it's everybody's got a basement.
yeah, absolutely. It's really
Yeah.
part of the house. I call it the adult Disney World because that's where
Right.
the movie theaters, cigar cellars, bowling alleys. We
Yeah.
actually did an ice rink once. She didn't get
Really?
to the Olympics, but
That's awesome.
which is unfortunate, but it was pretty cool. Yeah, it was a unique situation, but
That's
yeah,
incredible, man. I can't wait to see some of you guys' work when I go check out y'all's website after this. But no, really, the last thing we always ask everybody is, that the podcast is called Burn the Ship. For you, you've kind of been thrown in the fire your whole life, like you said. You subliminally been in this industry for your entire life. But what was it like to burn that ship? When you left college and your dad was kind of like, "Here's the keys." What was that moment like? Was it excitement, something you've been waiting for your whole life, or you nervous? Kind of what was those emotions?
it's one of those things where everything always looks more intimidating from the outside, right? And so, sure, when you start jumping into things when you don't necessarily have the experience, but the uncomfort is what makes you grow. It's like trying to take a sip out of a waterfall. Just treading water, it's a lot. But I think that the consistency of being able to stay self-motivated and to be able to pat yourself on the back sometimes when you do good things because it's always good to be your worst critic. Okay,
Right.
that's important for discipline. It's important to keep you humble, and to make sure that you always are growing because you're always still going to make mistakes. There are always people that are better and bigger than you, and you need to learn from them. Okay, but consistency is key because what a lot of people don't realize when they see from the outside flashy things, nice things, is they don't see the bottom of the iceberg. It's
Right.
really, really easy to hit 100 miles on the highway and then stop or crash. It's really hard to keep going. It's hard
Mm-hmm.
with obstacles, with turns, with other cars. Okay. Easy to get an A one semester. Try it for your entire college career. Staying consistent and not burning out and not just even staying stable, but gradually growing slow and steady that does win the race, that's probably the hardest part. And you don't really realize it till you're in it. So for anyone that's getting overwhelmed about what you have that you think is about to happen, just take one step in front of you. Okay. Just take one step in front of you because the biggest regret you're probably ever going to have is endless analysis paralysis. Okay. You got to take risks. If you can do it with a mentor or you could do it with somebody who's able to show you the way, show you the path to the extent that they're able to, at least you're not starting from ground level and you could climb to some earlier steps of the ladder. But be creative, and you got to think outside the box and surround yourself with the right people and just absorb whatever you can, but apply it. Don't just tuck it in your pocket, put it away, keep analyzing deals like, oh, I should do this, oh, I should do that. But oh, I don't have the money. Oh, I don't have the crew. Oh, I don't know the laws. Find out and take it from there.
Absolutely, brother. And then the last thing we do is I give my guest the last word. Do you got anything for the people?
I would say that anybody that's trying to get started out on starting a business, I know everyone's a little uncertain with the economy. There's a lot of crazy things that are going on, but guess what? It's always like that because like anything else, it's relative. You got to really look at where you want to be and focus mainly on what you're good at. If you are good at something and you stay at it, you will succeed. Okay. You have to stay at it. You got to stay true to yourself and don't lie to yourself. If you know you should be doing work or you should be looking into something and you're putting it off or you're kind of like half-assing it, it's not going to fly. It's not going to prevail in the end. And you got to also be realistic on what's feasible. What can you actually do right now? How can you get involved in certain things? So as long as you do that, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be hard times. There's always going to be uncertain opportunities. But the best time to start anything, especially to look into it when it's not costing you risk, liability, and money, is yesterday. Start looking into right now because by the time you repeat it to yourself, it'll be a year from now and you're going to say, I wish I got started.
Yeah, you're dang right about that, everybody. Oran, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you so much for coming out or coming on the podcast and talking with me. Tell the people where to find you and then burn the ship.
Yeah, sure. You can visit us at koslbuilding.com. We're always around and happy to, consult and help anybody that's interested in getting involved in real estate.
Absolutely. Burn the ship, guys.